sustainable and scalable business is very important. Every year, you've got to think about growing. Every year. If Elon Musk want to grow, you want to grow too. We welcome Bob. Bob has experience in big corporate, helping people to grow, mentor. He helped me personally in many things, and he's here to give us some of his value and some experience. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I want to give a quick plug, though, before I jump into my presentation to these two people. Stand up there again, young lady.
Yes, thank you.
Now, no offense to any other speaker in the room, because I don't know a lot of the people here, because I don't work in this space every day.
Yeah.
But this young lady is a client of mine. This gentleman is a friend of mine. These are two of the best resources you're going to find in this space. They understand it, they know it, they live it, they love it. Make sure to build relationships with them, have their contact information, tap into them. They're phenomenal, phenomenal people too. That's the other thing, is their integrity, the quality, character. You can't beat them. I love, he's like my little brother, she's my adopted daughter, okay? I've already said, anybody hurts her, I deal with it, and I will crush them. That's just a simple fact, I will destroy them utterly. And if I can't, I'll hire someone who does. It's that simple.
And I wanted to say real quick about Bob, because Bob is someone that I hired to take us further into the enterprise space. So we have Celbotics Enterprise, which is commercial work. So that's why I hooked up with Bob and hired him as a consultant. So he's not, you may not recognize him immediately, but he is extremely well known in the enterprise space. I mean, he holds command, and he has tons of very, very unique relationships with very, very important commercial large companies. So that's why I hired him, and I was so glad that he could come here and speak to you guys, even though you might not realize what he is, but you definitely want to follow him on LinkedIn and check it out.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Hey, I want to touch something real briefly before I get into my presentation on what Nicole was talking about. Compensation, as I said before, I ran 111 stores. They were Verizon Wireless retail stores. We were a Verizon Wireless premium retailer. We sold the stores about 11 or 12 years ago. One of the things that we did is the business changed and the commissions that we received changed. We realigned our compensation so that our compensation was in line with how we made money. So we started paying people on gross revenue. Okay? So the more money we made, the more money they made, the more money they made, the more money we made. So we eliminated commissions on an individual basis, and we made it about what they tallied in the course of the day. So the revenue they generated in the course of the day is what they were commissioned off of. So again, it aligned their goals and our goals. The two were synonymous. And so just food for thought when you're talking about compensation, because if you want to make sure your employees are paying for themselves and making you money, then align their commission structures and their compensations with yours. That's a win-win. Always try to get that alignment. And it makes it simpler too, because if you're just paying them off of a percentage of an accumulated lump sum, that's easier for them to calculate than if they have 10 different items that they get paid 10 different commissions off of. So simplicity is good, all right, because they're not going to be intimidated by their comp plan. And again, goal alignment is extremely important. If they're making money, you're making money. If they're not, you're not. It solves a lot of issues, folks. I'm telling you from experience, it'll help. All right, that said, let's get into this. We're going to talk business. That's what I'm here to discuss today, is business from a more generic perspective. Again, my name is Bob Lafon. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer and also a partner in HCG Holdings. We're a business consulting firm. Now, I've worked in the wireless industry in different segments of it for, God, I hate to admit this, but 38 years. I'm old. That's just my reality. I'm going to be 60 in a couple of months, so that's my reality. I'm old. So I've been doing this for a very long time, and a lot of the lessons I've learned, I try to share with people. Now, what's more important about how long I've done this is how far I've gone down the road, because how long somebody's done something is not indicative of what they've accomplished or where they've gone. If somebody says, oh, I've got 38 years of experience, but if you're on the path and this is all the further you've gone, so what? If you've been in the same spot for 38 years. But if you progressed along the way, that progression matters. So what I try to share with people is the experiences that I've gained, the good and the bad, much like being a parent. You know, you try to warn your kids about the things that you don't want them to do so that they don't repeat your mistakes needlessly. It's not a lot different as a consultant. You're trying to advise people and help them avoid pitfalls and make smarter business decisions, right? So today we're going to talk about two things. What is a sustainable business and how to build one, right? A lasting business. and also how to scale a business. And that's really necessary. Now, scaling doesn't always mean additional locations and things of that nature. Sometimes scaling is just making the business you have bigger, more lucrative by taking on more product lines, by making it more profitable, by taking on more space, so on and so forth. But the bottom line is grow or die. It is that simple in business. You're not just going to maintain, because your cost of business will go up over the course of time. Taxes, raises, benefits, rents, all of those different factors that are beyond your control to some degree are going to drive your cost of doing business up. So the idea is not just to maintain what you have, because that's virtually impossible. You have to be able to adapt, and it's better to be at the forefront of that change and driving change than reacting to it after the fact. You know, if I can ask for some forgiveness here, a little bit of grace. You know, we've heard the phrase "Me Too" relative to discrimination, right? And harassment, things of that nature. Well, I say in business, I don't want to be a Me Too. I don't want to be like everybody else. What's the point of that? None of us all look the same, so why would we want to be the same when it comes to how we do business? That just makes no sense whatsoever, okay? Differentiation, adding value, showing that you're better. That's what we need to be striving for day in and day out as we're running our businesses, is that kind of mindset. Now, as I get into this, one thing I'm going to do too is ask for a little bit of audience participation, because there are some people that tell me I'm not as interesting as I think I am. Some of them might even be in this room. I won't name names. My wife, but no, she's not here. She's usually the one that says it the most. But seriously, if you're looking at your phones, tablets, and other devices, then I'm losing you as an audience, and you're not getting value from this. And at the same time, you don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste mine. So I'm going to talk a little bit, ask for a little bit of feedback, talk for a little bit, ask for a little bit of feedback, because I recognize that all of you here have your own experiences that are valuable and viable, and they need to be shared with the audience. Fair enough?
Fair.
All right. Okay, let's talk about a sustainable business. A sustainable business is one that is adaptable and stands the test of time. How many of you know of a restaurant in your local community that's maybe been around your entire life? Anybody? Okay, that's a sustainable business. That's all the further you need to look to understand what a sustainable business is. If it's something that's been around forever, it has stood the test of time, right? That's a sustainable business, and that should be your goal, regardless of what your exit strategy is. Your goal should be to build something that will stand the test of time, right? Because you're able to adapt to the circumstances around you, you're able to improve, stay relevant, and keep people continuing to come and see you and do business with you. So that's goal number one, is building something that can stand the test of time. Now, we'll talk a little bit about what that means here in just a second. What I put up here are some elements that are necessary to build a sustainable business. First, it needs to meet the needs of the marketplace or the community it serves. Well, how do you determine what those needs are? Look around. What else is in the community that serves that? If there's a CPR, Repair You, Break I Fix, Techie, or some other franchise that's competing head-to-head with you, you need to look at that and say, what do we do differently? What do we do that's better? And what do we do that they don't do? That's where that term differentiation comes into play, right? Because otherwise you're competing against a company that has brand value, that has a name that's established, that has marketing behind it, other things of that nature that might make you feel like you're at a disadvantage. So you don't want to get into a spending war either if it's part of a larger organization. But you do need to take a hard look at what can you do to be different, what can you do to be better, what can you do to carve out a niche so that you're serving the marketplace and community and you're bringing value to it. Because if you're not, then you won't be there for very long, all right? One of the stories of success I like to share with people is in the early days of the wireless business on the retail side. We were doing really great things for Verizon. We had 19 stores. They really liked us a lot, wanted us to expand, and they wanted us to go into places like Philadelphia, New Jersey, other big metropolitan areas. I said, no, I have no interest in that. And I said, why? I said, I want to go into your underserved markets. I want to go into the small towns where there's no place to buy a phone. For example, if you know anything about Pennsylvania, a lot of us call it Pennsyltucky. Because after you get outside of Erie, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, it's rural. This is just God's country as far as the eye can see. But there are a lot of little small towns, and those poor small town people don't have the benefit of all those modern conveniences, so do they drive to the big cities to get stuff, right? So I said, no, I want to go to those small towns and serve those small towns and be the only cell phone shop in the town. So when people go to buy a phone, they come to us because we're local, we employ local people, and we're the only game in town, and we can dominate, right? And we can dominate to a point where it makes it almost impossible for somebody else to come in and compete with us. That strategy worked. We grew that company from 19 stores with $6 million in revenue to 111 stores, and catch this next one, $123 million in revenue. We were doing more than $1 million a store. When we started 19 locations, whenever I first bought in with $6 million in revenue, we were way off that mark, okay? So a lot of what we did though, was we decided to build a sales organization rather than a retail organization. When I first got involved and I started shopping our competition in some of the areas, here's what I'd walk into. I'd walk into a store, I'd see somebody, they'd ignore me for a few minutes until I kept walking on long enough and I made eye contact with them. They say, "Can I help you?" And I say, "I'm just looking, thanks." They go, "Okay." Then they go back to their computer, their games, or whatever they were doing, and they'd ignore me. They tune me out. I'd walk out the door. I'm like, well, that's not gonna happen in any stores I'm involved in. That crap ain't gonna play. It's not gonna float, no way. So I put a rule in place that we only hired people with sales backgrounds. You could not work for us unless you had some kind of sales background. And I didn't care what it was. You could be selling jewelry, you could be selling cars, insurance, didn't matter. But you had to have some kind of job in sales where at least part of your income came on commission, or you were used to having a quota, or you were used to being accountable for a certain level of productivity. And we made those requirements hard and fast. So while everybody was playing retail, we were a sales organization. So guess what we did? We destroyed every key performance indicator Verizon could give us. We were recognized 7 out of 9 years as their agent of the year on a national level, okay? We outperformed their corporate stores in most of the areas where we competed with them, not in terms of volume, but on a percentage basis of attainment of their different goals. So, and it was all because our mindset was different. We tried to go into small communities where we could dominate, but even in the larger communities, we built a sales organization and competed with retail. And retail couldn't compete with us because retail's passive. Retail people don't care. They generally don't have a reason to care, right? So that was step number one. So we looked at the needs of the marketplace, we developed a strategy around that, we brought in that strategy, and it was a wash, rinse, and repeat process too. Everywhere we took it, it succeeded, okay? That's another important factor because we had a superior model that succeeded, but we always started first with what marketplace do we want to go into, where do we add value, if it's oversaturated, do we want to be there? If there's 10 other people doing what we do, what value do we bring? Why do we want to be there, right? So if you're thinking about expansion, give thought to those kind of things before you go into new markets. It just doesn't make sense. If you're one of many, what unique value are you bringing to the marketplace? Does the marketplace need you, or are you just one more person in that marketplace trying to provide essentially the same solution, all right? So that uniqueness is important. I don't want to understate this at all. Adequate funding to provide working capital during periods of either rapid growth or unexplained or unplanned slowdowns. Anybody hear of COVID? Oh, okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. Okay, you know, I tried it too. It wasn't too bad. You know, I tried it like a couple years ago. It wasn't too bad. But anyway, what did COVID do to the marketplace? It killed us. It shut everything down, right? We had this debate over who was essential, who wasn't essential, who could be open, what couldn't be open, what hours we could be open. It was crippling. And if you didn't have a war chest to get you through those times, it probably put you out of business or at least made you close some locations, lay off some employees, but it had a devastating effect. And that's part of being a good business owner, is making sure that you've got a capital strategy that includes monies as a cushion to help you get through those difficult times, right? Those unforeseen things. And don't get me wrong, growth can be a problem too. Another story I'll share is we went through this period where Verizon's throwing money at us saying, open a store, we'll give you market development funds to help you do it. So we're opening stores at a hectic and hairy pace. But my partner and I and our senior staff were so busy opening these new locations that we kind of didn't keep an eye on the other ones. The other ones started to falter. And it caused a real problem because we had these new stores that needed time to ramp up and needed time and energy and invested in them. But then we also had these other locations that were our bread and butter that were paying the bills, and suddenly they weren't paying the bills so well because we weren't keeping a close enough eye on them. So the end result was we had to reinvest over $1 million 2 years in a row just to keep the company afloat. That was pretty scary. It was a pretty scary time when we really wondered for that 2-year period whether or not we were going to be around. We were kind of questioning whether or not this was going to be the end and we were going to have to walk away and go get jobs and do something else. It was a scary time. We weren't prepared for it. So I'm now a fan of what I call, what's the term? I'm sorry, I'm blanking. A senior moment here. Blanking on the term. A controlled growth model, right? So we grew, but we made sure we grew at a pace that wasn't too fast, too soon, and caused too many problems. It needed to be manageable growth, right? So capital is part of that manageable growth, making sure that you've got that financial cushion in case things go wrong, that you can still pay the bills and not have to worry about this growth becoming your newest problem, all right? Okay, management team. This is important. Doesn't matter if you have 1 location or 10 locations. You need to have a motivated group of people in place, whether you call them managers, supervisors, whatever the case may be, because you as an owner, you can't be there 24/7. You know, if I owned 1 single location, I would join my Chamber of Commerce, I'd attend every meeting, I'd get to know all the local businesses, build relationships with them so that when they had broken devices that they'd want to bring them to my store because I'm their guy, I'm their hookup, I'm the one who's going to take care of them, right? They know Bob, I'm the safe guy to come see. So I'd be in the community doing as much as I could to kind of evangelize and get the name out there, build a reputation, get people loyal to us, okay? Loyal to me as an owner. And that means I've got to have a solid team behind. So that means I've got to have some supervision to oversee what's going on in the store, to make sure people are working, to take care of our customers, to answer the phones, whatever needs to be done. So it's important that you've invested in developing that solid team that's going to be there to support you. You know, I'll use a sports analogy. I tried playing football at a high level. Emphasis on tried, okay? You know, but one thing you recognize when you're playing a sport like that is, I don't care how good your quarterback is, how good your receivers are, it takes a whole team. One person isn't going to be, you know, Tom Brady, they say he's the best quarterback of all time. Maybe he is. But he still has people who have to catch the ball, still has people who need to block for him, right? Still needs a team to play defense. So you as store owners, you've got to make sure you have that solid team behind you. That is so important. So what Nicole was talking about before is just so very important, in investing in making sure you've got the right people. And a quick tip on hiring too. I just worked with a client several months ago who was having difficulty with hiring, and they said, look, we cannot afford to pay more than what we're paying. It just doesn't work for our margins. We can't do it, but we need to staff up. And they said, we're running ads. No one is applying at all. Anybody else in here have that problem? Wow, one person? Okay, I guess the rest of you are doing pretty good then.
Yeah.
You know, either that or we need to stand up and do some calisthenics and wake you up. But, you know, the point is, they were struggling. And part of it is there's a lot of free government, well, so-called free government money floating around out there, and people can take advantage of that and not have to go to work. Okay? And until that kind of dries up and goes away, people are going to stay home. It's like, if I can make the same amount of money and not go to work, that's not me, but I get that that's how some people are wired. So how do we work around that and keep our store staffed and open? Well, there's some interesting organizations that are doing some really good work. Salvation Army, Goodwill Industries. I'm a veteran, so I'm a big fan of supporting veteran organizations. The Disabled American Veterans has a ton of vets with great skills, attitudes, and work ethics that are looking to contribute. And they can oftentimes take on a variety of different jobs, and they're coachable, they're teachable, they want to work. Okay, those can be great places to work. Another organization, I'm forgetting the name of it specifically, but they deal with really highly functioning, autism.
It's
Highly functioning autistic people who can be socially awkward, but they're highly intelligent, and when they're put on task, oh my God, the work ethic is unbelievable. And they work to try and be flawless because they're so logically minded. But those are some unusual places. There are even work release programs that are worth looking into, second chance programs where you're working with people who aren't serious convicts, like they're not axe murderers, they're not arsonists, they're not rapists, but they've done something to put them inside, and now they're trying to rebuild a life outside. So there's a variety of non-traditional sources you can look at, and it's worth looking at all of them to see where you might find some people who they want a chance, right? So there are people out there that want to work, but just running the ads, putting signs up in your windows, things of that nature, isn't going to always get it done. But the other thing too is I like to recruit. So one of the things I used to do with my stores is if I went to a restaurant, I had a great server, oh, that server was coming to work for me. He or she didn't have a choice, they just didn't know. They were coming to work for me, all right? You know, you knock my socks off, you need to be on my payroll. That's what my mindset as an owner was. So anywhere I went and had that kind of experience, where somebody just blew me away, it's like, you gotta be working for me, right? I even used to carry business cards on the back. It had a little thing on the back that says, unsatisfied with your career, not earning what your full potential is, need to be challenged, contact me. And people would. I'd get emails, I'd get phone calls, and people would say, hey, thanks for the card, I saw that, I wanted to follow up and see what kind of opportunities you have, right? So you gotta think outside the box. In this day and age, it's not what it was 5, 7, 10 years ago. So you've gotta be smart and you've gotta be creative, okay? All right, reputation, that's everything. You know what I am? I'm a brand. I've worked really hard to establish myself as a brand. People don't know this. People don't know the name of this company that's been around since 2014, but they know Bob Lafon, right? I've worked really hard to establish a certain brand so that people know me, they know my reputation, they believe I can help them solve problems, that I'm someone that they want to know and be connected to. So you need to treat your businesses the same way. You need to get to a point where everybody knows who you are, they like you, they value you, they want to do business with you, and they don't care about the national brand. They don't care about those other competitors. They don't care about a Best Buy. They don't care about anybody else. They care about you because you worked hard to establish that great name and reputation in the community, right? Unsurpassed customer service is part of that, and sales focus. You know, again, as a consultant, one thing I do with every company I've ever worked for, and this has held true over 40 times in the past, 11 years that I've consulted, the low-hanging fruit is your existing customers, people who've done business with you. If you want to add more revenue, invest more time and effort into going back to those people and making sure that they're buying everything you have to sell, getting every service you have to offer. They've done business with you once, they should be able to do business with you again. That's your fastest path to increasing your revenue, is going back to the people who've done business with you and getting them to buy more, okay? So nothing wrong with chasing new business and trying to expand that, but if you're looking for a quick result, that existing customer base is there, and that's why that sales focus is so important, because nothing happens till a sale is made, period. It's the truth in business. All right, scalable. What is a scalable business? Well, a scalable business is one with a proven business model that you can replicate. It's got that wash, rinse, repeat process. Your model's so solid, you know you can take that anywhere and be successful with it because you've done it somewhere else before, right? So that's part of what you have to have, is you've got to have those processes down pat. That's why someone like Nicole is so enormously helpful, because she's very process driven. And having those repeatable processes helps, because we're all going to have turnover. It's unavoidable. But if you've got solid processes, you can plug people into that. I'll go back to another sports analogy because I like using what's relatable. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so I don't like Bill Belichick and I don't like New England. All right? That's reality, okay? I don't like them, but I respect them because they win. And if you ever watch them, interesting thing happened. Brady get hurt, whoever they put in for Brady, played like Brady. How is that possible, right? But then that same quarterback would leave the next year and go to play for another team and look average. But whenever he was replacing Brady, he looked great. Why? Anybody know why?
The system. The team.
Yes, system. The model, yeah. It was plug and play. You know, I don't want to make it sound ridiculous, but you could almost put me in there and make it work. I was a linebacker, so that's why I said almost. I hit people, that's what I...
You kind of like Brian, will you?
Oh, yeah. I like to hit people. Anyway, but the system was so good, it was plug and play. Is your system that tight? It should be. Okay? Invest in developing that wash, rinse, repeat process, that system, so that when you have that turnover, you know you can bring new people in, educate them on that system to get them to buy into your approach, and watch them succeed, watch them thrive. So you've got to have those processes in place. You have to have that tight system. And that tight system allows you to consider expansion. That allows you to think about opening up additional locations or a bigger store with more technicians to better serve your community. So again, whether you're expanding one location into multiple or expanding the size and footprint of one location, you need to make sure that you've got those processes in place, that it's tight, okay? So again, wash, rinse, repeat, easily replicated, proven financial model, positive cash flow for a sustained period of time. Possesses unique elements needed in a variety of different communities, right? So that you know you can take this pretty much anywhere and it's going to work. Sales and customer service focused. Strong leadership, strong back office, plenty of support for the existing business and able to absorb the effects of growth. Because like I said before, growth can be a problem. And somebody once said to me, oh, that's a good problem to have. And I thought about it and I said, actually, you're wrong. There's no such thing as a good problem. Because every problem requires a solution, right?
Correct.
So it's still a problem. I don't want problems. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of allergic to problems. I don't want problems. Nobody else wants problems either. So you avoid that by making sure that you have these fundamentals in place and a solid structure. So that's extremely important whenever you're considering this. All right, questions? Come on, I'm not that good.
I got a question for you.
34 years my wife's been telling me that, so come on.
I got a question for you.
Please.
How were you, so you started off as one store initially, right?
Yeah.
Is that how you started off? When did you know it was time to start scaling, or what kind of made you realize, okay, this is something I can really take it to another position?
When we got to a point, his question, he wanted to know how I knew it was time to grow, right? And that's not an easy question to answer. In our case, we looked at it and said, you know, this thing's on autopilot. We could all go on vacation and it just kind of runs itself. We had a really solid team of people that were super motivated. They treated the business like they owned it. Things were just firing on all 8 cylinders. You know, it was throwing off a lot of cash. So we knew we didn't need to borrow money to be able to open up a second location, which was important. We didn't want the debt. We were a little scared of the debt. Down the road, we learned that there's a value to debt, but at that time, we didn't want to take on the debt because we were small. So taking on debt was kind of a scary thing. So as we looked at the business, we knew we had the cash flow, we knew we had the solid team, and we thought about it and we thought, okay, we think that this is the right time to do this, but we wanted to do it kind of carefully. So we made sure to open up a store that was no more than about 40-45 minutes from the existing store. So it was a new market, new opportunity. It was underserved, so there wasn't a lot of risk because we didn't have a lot of competition in the area at that time. Actually, we had none. So, you know, it helped minimize or mitigate that risk. So we weren't taking this overwhelming chance. So we still took a conservative approach to it. But that's kind of how we grew early on, was we weren't willing to look at any new stores or any new locations at all until what we had was rock solid. Operationally, functionally, financially, that we knew that we could take that next step and not have it be a big capital risk or a big risk that was going to put us out of business. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense.
Okay. You're the one that's going to have to measure what that looks like, but that's a pretty good formula that should help you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I know you said you worked in the Verizon
2 minutes.
aspect of things. You know, repair and retail stores like Verizon are a little bit different in my mind.
Oh, they are absolutely different.
Now, why do you think those stores never went into the repair aspect of things?
Because the carriers drove that. The carriers decided if you wanted to carry the Verizon label or an AT&T or Sprint or T-Mobile label, your stores had to look like their stores, right? And they weren't going to let you do things that their stores didn't do, because that gave you an advantage over their own stores. So they still had the loyalty first to their own employees and own stores, which they should, because those are their people, their stores. So they weren't going to let us have that differentiation. But you know, keep in mind that while it's kind of apples and oranges in terms of Verizon, selling Verizon phones and services and accessories versus retail repair, business is business, and that's still transferable. Now, I work in this space, but I work on the commercial side. I consult with companies that do commercial repair on a large-scale basis. So I have a friend who's here. He's not a client, he's a friend, but you know, he's someone in that space. He's got 40,000 square feet, 50, 60 employees, and they're dealing with, you know, tens of thousands of devices on a monthly basis. So I've been working with companies in that space for a number of years, helping them build those depots, expand those facilities, and work in the space. So I understand the space on that side, and I understand retail as someone who owned and operated retail locations. So my goal here today wasn't to talk to you about how to do a better job on the repair side, but how to do a better job as a business person in running a successful company. Does that make sense?
My
I'm
general,
gonna go to the next slide, just so they know who's up next.
Okay.
really quickly, my general kind of outlook on this, or opinion on this is it because Verizon thinks it's hard to scale repair businesses that they don't want to do that, or in general?
Well, they're a service provider, and they just don't want to get outside of what they do. They have a lot of different partnerships that they're looking at aligning themselves with, and repair is something I can tell you for a fact. There's a lot of discussion going on internally in their headquarters about how they want to do that, but it's not something they want to invest in or buy. It's something they want to do through partnerships. And they do have solutions partners that provide other services, and they're just taking a hard look at how they want to address repair. Right now, their real priority is built around trade-in and making those trade-in programs more valuable and making them more functional so they can generate more revenue from those, and create more customer stickiness. So.
We're done. Yeah, Ben, we're ready to bring. You want to come in? We'll take one more question while we hook up the computer, and you guys can find him outside too to talk to him individually, okay?
Wow, I'm being thrown out of the room.
I'm so sorry.
And after I talked him up, I mean, come on. Jeez.
I just used
No
you for
loyalty.
that moment.
Please, go ahead, Matt.
T-Mobile has approached
So you
our
just need
stores
HDMI?
about partnering in I live in a rural area. So I guess,
There you go.
their benefit is that they have built
Yeah, you can just sit it right here,
not in
or-
their area into
Oh, yeah, that's right.
stores. So that's what's in it for them.
Good
But
deal.
what's your thoughts on, they're still going to allow us to sell the phones. We'll also sell their phones, their service. We'll get paid on,
On the activation.
on the activations and things like that, but we still run our business and market, and we can pivot how we want to.
I think that's wonderful. I'm not surprised T-Mobile's willing to do that because T-Mobile, they kind of position themselves as the Un-carrier. They're more likely to be more flexible. It brings up a good point, though. If you're not getting paid on activations and upgrades, don't send that business away. Find a dealer, an agent, or somebody who's willing to pay you. That's just additional money you can be making. Sell people a phone, activate the phone, and get paid for it. Being able to do the upgrades, there's additional money to be
Just
made.
brings more people in our store.
Yeah, and that's what you
SEO
want.
and-
Exactly. More people across your thresholds means more opportunity. So, but anyway, for the sake of time, I apologize. Feel free to hunt me down I'll be here the rest of the time, and thank you so much for your time and attention.
Guys, make sure to talk to Bob. Make sure.
Thank you so much.